What contribution can learning and leadership have on your organization's culture? What role does talent management have to play in your strategy? And what's the next people challenge that organizations need to be looking out for? If only there was an experienced people and culture leader with a background in talent development currently on the speaker circuit and just off his first book launch to ask these questions to. As luck would have it, I'm joined today by Dani Saadu to help me out. So welcome to In Good Company, Dani. What a pleasure it is to have you here.
Are you sure that I'm that person? I'm trying to
Yeah, that's you.
I appreciate the intro. It was very nice. And thank you very much for having me.
Well, as I say, it is a pleasure to have you here, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day. And I know particularly it's a busy time for you at the moment, which we'll come to in a minute.
Yeah.
So, while we let's first of all give our audience the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. So, let's ask you our first question, which we ask all of our guests, which is, tell us about yourself in 60 seconds.
Well, I am a passionate, enthusiastic, and committed people professional. I've been in the people space now for nearly 20 years. I started off in learning and development, then moved into organizational development, talent, and now people and culture. I've worked in the pharmaceutical, FMCG, travel, recruitment, and now media sectors. And I've just written my first book, which I'm really heavily proud of. I speak at conferences on people and HR, and I'm just very passionate about communicating and sharing my insights within the people space and networking with new people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to ask you about your book in a second. We've met before, of course. We met at LearnFest, which was an event that Impact had to give up during COVID. But yeah, I think it was our last one actually that you were at, which was 2019, which feels like such a long time ago.
That's right.
Done it, yeah, and it was one of my favorite events that we did. So I really hope that we'll be able to bring that back in some form.
It was awesome.
It was, wasn't it? You had a good time?
Yeah, I had a great time. So if you do it again, I recommend people who are listening to attend it. I went with my people development, talent development team at the time, and it was a great way for us to kind of re-energize us, refocus us on our strategy and what matters most within that space.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome.
Well, for those that are maybe new to Impact, I'll quickly just give a lowdown as to what LearnFest was. So LearnFest was an event that we hosted at our headquarters, where it was essentially a festival of learning. And we would have two full days of headline speakers, breakout sessions, learning sessions, and all with the backdrop of the UK's Lake District. So yeah, it was an amazing event, and one I really hope we do bring back, because it was a special event. You can go and find out some more with our videos that we've got on YouTube. So I'll maybe put a link to that in the description. Right, enough about that. Let's move back to you and why you're here today. So my first question is, we're going to be talking about leadership and learning and culture today.
Yeah.
But we don't always have, as you've already mentioned, a newly published authors as our guests. So First of all, congratulations on your new book. And the title, I believe, is called The CAPEX Formula for Learning and Performance. So could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, so the CAPEX formula, an acronym that stands for culture, adaptability, profitability, expectation, and the X factor. And the formula together, those 5 components together, when done really well, can drive the best organizational learning within a company and an organization, and therefore leading to really good performance and therefore correlating to the best culture. We talk about very practical on-hand things and how L&D needs to change and move away from the kind of traditional approach it's had historically, and also to embrace technology with AI and machine learning coming out, how you can use some of that as well to kind of enhance and deliver effective learning and the right culture.
It sounds awesome, and it's your first book. How's kind of the launch gone and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's gone really well. I'm so grateful to my co-author, a guy called Kevin McAlpin. He written a few books before, and he reached out to me. We've got a very good relationship. He reached out to me during COVID to kind of, start this journey on this book. I'd never written a book before. I was really scared.
Sure.
It was a really tough time for me. My father just passed away from COVID, and
Sure.
it was a very emotional journey for me. And I'm just so grateful for him. He is an excellent learning professional. Has a great kind of company, self-employed, has his own business, and is doing some amazing work.
And I know because we've chatted a little bit about this before recording, but it's doing well. Tell us about
It is doing well. Um,
that.
when it came out, it was number one for hot releases across 5 categories on Amazon. So it was number one for hot releases in business, law, and finance, which was ahead of the Prince Charles's book and Tony Robbins.
Wow.
It was number one for business management, number one for leadership and management, and number one for HR, human resources, and personnel management. And that's so what you have is a hot releases. That's when a new book comes out. The new books, which are the best selling and getting the best reviews, when they just come out. What was
Yeah.
then cemented was that it's the best selling book, like over a 12-month period within HR and personnel management. So all the books that have come out before it, it's the best selling book in
Wow.
that category for the last 12 months in less than a week, which is
What an
quite crazy.
achievement. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
And you mentioned it was an emotional journey for you, and we Impact often talk about pivotal moments. And I wonder if there was a pivotal moment aside from your co-author calling you up and saying, "Shall we do this?" But was there a point? And you also mentioned about your father sadly passing away. Was that the pivotal moment that kind of brought you to go, right? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, there was. Without I don't want to kind of get people too sad without going too personal. Uh, because of how my dad passed away, he passed away very early into lockdown. We were only a week or two into lockdown, and he passed away from COVID. And
Yeah.
because there was a high profile for any doctor that was dying of COVID. So he was a consultant physician, was semi-retired, was still working to kind of help people, and he knew COVID was coming, so he didn't want to kind of fully retire. So he was kind of trying to do, be a martyr.
Yeah, sure.
And he got, he contracted COVID and then passed away, a week into lockdown. And he was the 4th doctor to die in the UK, and it made national news. So I spoke on his behalf, obviously.
Yeah.
On BBC News, Sky News, it was quite a big thing. I was on CNN, it was a massive thing. And obviously it had, global exposure, and the amount of people that reached out to me to say how my dad had helped him that I had no clue about. So I knew my dad was a legend, but I had no clue until he passed. And it just really dawned on me what my legacy would be. And the thing is that all of this kind of material stuff that we kind of gather through our lives, you don't take with you to the other side. What people remember is what you've done. So your memories you've left on the world. So and my dad just left some amazing memories on the world, and I kind of started to think about what I wanted to do, and it's just kind of driven me down that kind of angle of thinking about my own legacy, and the timing of the book I think was right, and I just said, yeah, let's do this.
Well, you're an inspiration because, and I'm sure. Well, first of all, you sound extremely proud of your book, and I have no doubt that your father will have the utmost of pride for you. So yeah, it's what an amazing achievement, and a true nod to your father, and yeah, what a legacy you'll be leaving behind yourself. So yeah, amazing, well done. My next, so let's move into some more questions on today's theme. You've been researching your book. You're also on advisory boards, and you've been on the speaker circuit recently. What key themes are you noticing? What emerging trends or recurring topics do you think businesses are most interested in at the moment?
One of the biggest things is AI.
Sure.
And its explosion in the last 12 months into kind of everyday society, and the impact it's having on people's lives. And also how, I suppose, then translating to how AI can be used within organizations to make them more efficient, to be more productive, and also using AI and technology to drive people's learning. And that's something that I've been talking very much about. I've been talking to people, professionals, about how to embrace AI, not be scared about it, become more knowledgeable with it so that they can utilize it cleverly and deliver more and be more efficient with their work, and also to deliver really a different channel of learning that people might
Yeah.
want. Because I feel that for me, learning professionals are like conductors of an orchestra. So, you've got different musicians playing different instruments, and an AI is one section of the orchestra playing a particular instrument, but there's other channels. And I just feel that a good conductor is able to conduct anybody regardless of what musical instrument they're playing.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel we should be looking at this stuff. So that's one of the things that's definitely high on the agenda when I'm kind of going around the circuit, AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
I would say the other thing is around organizational values and the values of their people. So there's been a massive shift of people's values and what they want pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah.
People are so much more clearer and focused on what their values are and what they want from the workplace as a result of going through a pandemic where they either lost people, knew people that they lost, were impacted by being at home and having their lives restricted. Companies are having to tread differently when it comes to dealing with their people. Their people are expecting more.
Yeah.
And if you want to keep and retain good talent, you have to kind of find the balance between providing those things and how you do that. So that's something that I think is heavily, comes up a lot. And I'd say from a learning perspective, some of the, or actually no, yes, learning is involved in this, but I'd say if we take it bigger, is how to traverse this new hybrid working world we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
How do organizations build a hybrid working culture where now you don't have people in 5 days a week?
Yeah.
How do you build a culture? How do you connect? How do you engage with people and get them to lean in and to feel part of your organization, and to work collaboratively when you have people not coming in 5 days a week anymore?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there that would be in itself its own episode. So
Do multiple episodes on all those three things I just said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI, like it's certainly hitting the world fast and hard, isn't it? I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around AI and the future, and particularly how it will be utilized by organizations and the world generally. But then again, like, I've kind of been in such a, because I'm from quite a techie background, I guess. And, I've always been fully into gadgets, but equally, like you've said, since COVID, now there's been a big focus on making sure we don't lose what it is to be human, So I think it's that as long as we can work those things out, where we have utilizing AI but also remaining human, it's like, how do you find that balance? And I think that's going to be a key thing to focus on over these next few years. There's something there, and then of course, what you've mentioned about hybrid, like I think there's two ways of looking at it, isn't there? There's yes, it maybe not, as you don't necessarily get that same feeling of connection when you're not face to face or not in a physical environment. But equally, it opens up the doors, because I remember thinking through lockdown of going, well, I'm connecting with people that I wouldn't normally connect with because everybody's on that same playing field, everybody's on that same level, where we're all talking to each other via the same platform. So suddenly you have to get creative as to how you can create levels of connection. Of course, we all did things like online quizzes all together, or watch parties, or all this stuff. So it's how do we then do that, but in a hybrid way as well, to keep that level of connection and culture in it, but whilst being dispersed.
I think one of my, so everything you said I completely agree with. I think my concern and worry is that we go too far towards it just being all digital,
Sure.
and we lose that connectivity of face-to-face contact. I'm especially worried for the younger generation coming through, because I do a lot of work with early career talent, Gen Zs, bringing them into the workforce, and a lot of young people have have experienced university, college, the last
Yeah.
3 or 4 years through a digital platform. They haven't
Yeah.
had that experience of that face to face, and um, obviously we are moving into a digital age, and it's going to have a place, and we need to embrace it. But I feel that lack of being able to sit in front of somebody and having those interpersonal skills to be able to read them, to be able to
Yeah.
influence them, to be able to persuade them, to be able to lead them, I think is going to be to the detriment of our younger people if they
Yeah.
don't have those skills in later life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also I think and people will could challenge this. I think it's also a contributing factor to the high increase of mental health that we have in younger people nowadays, not being able to have a conversation with somebody. They would rather
Yeah.
message or text. So yeah.
Well, yes, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that there's, I suppose, a duty then for, anybody that's either in a teaching role, in a parenting role, in a any sort of that we can make sure that we do that, and there are tools out there to help. I mean, humans are by nature social animals, aren't we? That is what it boils down to. So, and all that has to happen is that the internet gets switched off, or something happens there that you have to go back to all of these things. So it's whether that ever happens or not, I have no idea. But it's fascinating. And I think big part of that is particularly when with organizations, when we're looking about the learning and leadership culture, a big part of that, I guess, is purpose. So let's talk a bit about purpose. First of all, do you think purpose is important? And I guess, a supplementary question to that is, if the organization does an organization need a clear purpose, and does every individual who works there have to sort of subscribe to that purpose?
Purpose is absolutely key. And actually it's a large component of the book me and Kevin have written. So purpose is essential, because purpose is essential on an individual level, on a group level, on an organizational level. It stems through the whole thing. So people who are the most resilient, have the best mental well-being, mental health, are positive, happy in their lives, generally have a good psychology, have a really clear purpose of what they're trying to achieve, and their purpose is really clear. And when they've achieved that, they create something. They create another purpose. So they always have something that they're trying to strive and achieve for, having that purpose in life. The same thing with a high performing team. If you take a team that is high performing, that is delivering in the workplace or wherever, as a sports team, they have a goal and a purpose about what they want to achieve. They have a drive. This is our target. This is where we want to get to, and we're going to get there, come hell or high water. And the same thing with an organization. If you look at all the organizations that are probably delivering the best, have the best culture, and are the most successful, they have a really clear strategy. It is clear. Everybody in the business knows it. It's easy to communicate. You communicate to everybody. It's really clear and it's understood. So,
well, it's funny you mentioned that, because as part of our,
we do talk about that in the book.
yeah. Well, and it sounds like there's similar wavelengths, because Impact's team performance model, which we have another episode on, shameless plug, where is the center of our model is unified purpose. So it's as you say, such a key part. And I feel like we've definitely, you mentioned in your intro that you are a passionate person when it comes to things like this, and that answer there, you just absolutely was shining through the just passion that you have around this topic. So yeah, glad we asked you here today. So yeah, and of course, for organizations to exist, profits and efficiency and have to exist. And yet one thing we're looking at, and we've talked about this a little bit already, is that human-centered leadership and how important it is for the future of organizations. What potential challenges or blockers do you think businesses might face if they're trying to become a more human-centered organization, and how can they overcome these?
I feel that I feel there is a certain train and school of thought that if you become too human-centered, you become soft, and therefore you can't deliver commerciality, you can't be profitable if
Yeah.
you are too human-centered. Is my and some people might challenge this. From my experience, people I've interacted with within my network, so I've got quite a large network. There is a school of thought, because I've heard it directly from people's mouths, and I've had the conversation, that people sometimes feel that if you are too human-centered, too empathetic, you are soft, and therefore you then can't make the really tough decisions. You're not really achieving or delivering anything, and that isn't true. But
Yeah.
there is that school of thought that if you are too human-centered, if you're too soft, if you're too about your people, then you're not gonna be making. You've got to be cutthroat, ruthless. And I suppose that's kind of what the narrative's always been. The most successful people who are billionaires, the Jeff Bezoses, the Mark
Yeah.
Zuckerbergs, all these guys were ruthless to get to where they were. I suppose I get that, but what you don't hear is the successful people who have become successful because they've got a more human-centered approach. And actually, I feel now in this day and age, especially post-COVID, after everything we've gone through, people want that. People want a human-centered approach. People want that connectivity. People want you to be empathetic to their circumstances and their situation. Because if you are that, if you give a human-centered approach, what you end up happening is people will be more committed to the purpose of your organization, your company, what you're trying to deliver, and therefore they will be more committed and give more of their time and actually perform better.
Yeah.
And therefore you do eventually then get to good performance. You do get to commerciality, and you become successful. And you
Absolutely.
retain people, and you retain talent, and people want to work for you, and they don't want to go anywhere. And they go, they will have those conversations with their family to go, listen, I'm going to be working late this evening because I've got this to do. They feel more comfortable to go back to their family, to take time away from that, to deliver on their work, because they feel that their work treats them like human beings, gives them that, resonates with their values, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Whilst you were talking there was a really good, what I thought was a really good analogy of that kind of ruthlessness to get to the top, when it comes to, and recently, I don't know if you've been watching this, but there's a show called The Traitors, which has kind of become
I
this
absolutely
global.
watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah. I've watched both. We binge
and
both seasons, me and my wife. It's
that's it.
excellent. For those of you who've not
It's
watched
so
it,
good.
go and watch Traitors. It's on BBC iPlayer. It is
Yeah.
awesome.
It is awesome, and we've just we've watched the most recent series of the UK version, but there's also been the Australia version, and I'm not going to say any spoilers.
Well.
I'm going to
I'm watching the Australia version as well.
Yeah, well, I won't say any spoilers because I have reached the end. But if it's this, and if you don't know what The Traitors is, it's this show that brings 20 or so people together into a castle or a big hotel, and they go through a series of challenges, building up a prize pot of money. And in amongst all these 20 people, there are a number of traitors, and they're out. If they get to the end, they win all the money, stealing it from the faithfuls, as they're known. And then you sort of see these relationships and things form between in essentially a big game, but the relationships become real. And then you've got these people who are essentially, they're all out to win the money, but then there's this: do we share the money? Do we not share the money? Do we stab people in the back? And they go all through these things. And it's just, yeah. So as you were talking there about, and I suppose a big part of it was this sort of the way you connect with these characters and who comes out top. Is it the person that wins the money, or is it the person that, and depending on how they got there as well. And yeah, it's just this fascinating way of seeing how those personalities develop, and realistically, who is the bigger winner out of all of it, and once it's all finished. So it's really hard to talk about, actually, without giving any spoilers away.
It is. Yeah, we know. So it is, but I
it's very good. So I do recommend you watch it.
Yeah, I do recommend it, and I'm also very fascinated by you. I don't really know which is the better. I know personally what I would prefer to be.
Sure,
I would prefer to be a faithful. I think the traitor requires a lot more energy and naturally goes against what people would do in most circumstances. So that's why I think people struggle with it.
I mean, it's amazing to see how people just easily fit into this lying and sort of deceitful role as well. Like, and the way they come out of it, you think, what must it be like when those people go back to work? Like,
yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
nuts. Anyway, I won't dwell on that. I've talked about the traitors long enough. So I wanted to talk to you about some research actually that we did, and I wanted to get your take on it. So research that impacted, I think it was last year now, where we surveyed over 500 global CEOs and senior execs. And some of the results came back where the number one driver of people engagement and retention was trust. Quite a good segue, actually, from the traitors. Trust being a fundamental aspect of a healthy culture. So how would you cultivate trust and within a team or organization? And my supplementary question that goes with that is, what impact does that have on the overall success of the company?
I think there obviously there's multiple ways you can build trust, but I think the main ways that I can think of that come off head, and I also, so there are a couple of things that come straight to mind, and the reason why they come straight to mind is because it's what I encourage our senior leadership, which I'm part of at Wavemaker, and also our exco to do, to build that trust from a cultural perspective. So one of them is being as honest and transparent as possible about why a decision has been made, even if it's not the decision that people want. You need to be able to trust in your people that they'll be able to accept why you've made that decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are things. I get it. There are things you can't tell everyone.
Yeah.
But I feel if something is coming and it's not good and it's going to upset people, it's important to let them know why this is happening and to give them context and to actually control the narrative and go out with it first than people hearing it through different channels. That's one. Two, I think it's also about being committed to, if you are committed to doing something and you communicate to the business, this is what we're going to do, it's about then sticking to it and doing it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, because you'd be surprised how many organizations kind of say, yeah, we'll do this, and then it kind of just goes quiet and nothing happens. So I think do what you say you're going to do and deliver on it. So if you communicate to the business, you're going to do this, make sure you do it.
Yeah.
And then go back to the business and say, we said we were going to do this and we've done it, so people know. And then, the other thing I said was being really honest and transparent about why decisions are being made within a business. Try and make people feel that they are included in the decisions that are being made, even if they aren't.
Yeah.
Making people and giving them that perception of the context of why these decisions are being made.
Yeah.
And giving people the opportunity to ask questions as much as possible about what's happening. I think it's key. Because it like I said, because of for me, what COVID did, if I'm one of those people who likes to take positives out of anything, and if were there any positives that came out of COVID, which aren't many, I would say that a lot of things that were problems or challenges pre-COVID got amplified and just made even worse during COVID. Like a magnifying glass was put on things that we really should have dealt with pre-COVID. Yeah. And things like being, having more inclusive leadership, being, better retaining just loads of stuff in the people sector, especially, that we should have done better. Were just exposed so much more during COVID because of how we were working and the fact that we're working from home and the fact our lives were restricted. And I think the trust in an and that's why, one of the things, remember you asked me at the beginning of the podcast, what are some of the common themes and agendas that are coming up in the speaking circuit? And I said one of them is around organizational values matching with with your employee values. People's values and what they expect from an organization is different now, pre-COVID and post-COVID. And one of the things that is fundamentally key to somebody joining a business nowadays is, do my values match with the values of the organization?
Yeah.
And one of those things will be, if that's what people are focusing on, that comes with, do I trust you guys? Am I just going to be a number? Are you going to care about me as an individual? So on and so forth. the purpose of your organization, does that match with what my purpose is, so on and so forth. So I'm not surprised that these CEOs and senior leaders were saying trust is really important. I believe if this was pre-COVID, you would have different results to what you're saying now. So saying the trust that you need to build within your people, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's it goes back to what we've been talking about human centricity as well.
Correct.
That's a
Correct.
massive part of it. So, yeah, if organizations don't adapt to that requirement from newer people joining, starting their careers and things, then they're not necessarily going to survive. So I think it's something to look at if they're not being locked out already. As part of that same research, it came back saying that only 25% of organizations are encouraging to be themselves in the workplace. So how can we leverage the diversity of inclusion of organizations to enhance a learning and leadership culture?
This is a really, really important topic, because I've had this conversation multiple times. What does bringing yourself to work mean? Because if you take somebody's entire self, right, there are elements of their self that they shouldn't bring to work, regardless.
Yeah.
So I think for me, because it's just not appropriate. So I think for me, it's not necessarily bringing your entire self to work. It's about bringing your best self to work. That's going to benefit the organization. That's going to enhance what your work. That's going to make you productive. That's going to give you a good career, and also going to benefit the business. And I think the culture you create is key to that. And that definitely, and that cascades down from leadership. So I am very much about bringing your best self to work. And that's why the terminology is key. Best self to work means components of yourself that is going to be conducive to delivering work. So I'll give you an example, right? I'm a massive gamer. I love to play computer games, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't bring that to the workplace in the work that I do, because it wouldn't help me.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously there's elements you can say, gamifications, you can use that, but you understand the point I'm making. I'm a massive gamer, and I use it to zone out, to connect with people and whatever else, but I wouldn't bring that part of me, an element to me, to the workplace, because it wouldn't be appropriate. So what I mean for me is it's about bringing your best self, so for me, the things that are good, the things that I am about and what I'm about is I'm very people orientated. I care.
Yeah.
I love collaborating. I've got good energy. I like to be positive. I like to be creative. I like to meet new people, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
If that was restricted, or people said I couldn't bring that to the workplace, then they wouldn't get the best of me.
Sure.
So if people said, "Oh, Dani, you're a bit too much. You have to tone it down. We don't do that here," then I would do that, because I'm somebody who responds to feedback,
Adaptable.
and I'm adaptable. But you wouldn't get the best of me, and that's happened to
Sure.
me before. I've joined organizations where people have gone, "Dani, you're in a nice way. Dani, you're a little bit too crazy. Tone it down. That's not what we're looking for here." And they give it to me. They give me that feedback as developmental feedback. Right? I have learned now that this is not the right place for me. I'm
Sure.
not gonna change who I am, because I am Dani, and actually, when you allow me to be Dani, you get the best of me. And I've been successful in other organizations where I have been fully Dani. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a really good insight there as to both your sort of personal journey in your career, and also I'm very curious to know what you're like as a gamer. Like, I reckon we're going to see that this is where the ruthless
Yeah,
traitor
mate, I'm
side
on it.
comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can imagine.
It's gaming, man. I love it.
Sure.
But yeah, but it's like I said, it wouldn't be an element I bring into work.
Well, with that in mind, then, so how in your if it was up to you, how would you? Well, I suppose in some ways it is. If you were to, what would be your tips, I guess, to create that psychologically safe environment where you could bring as much of your whole self to work as possible, but also a place where people can feel that they can share their ideas and perspectives?
I think that's a massive question. I think
Yeah, sorry.
no, that's fine. No, mate. I think to answer it in this setting, with the time that we've got, I think the easiest thing to say would be that your leadership have to really lean into this.
Sure.
And what I mean by this is that if you have a leadership that believes inclusivity and they create a culture and an environment where it's not them and us, because I've been in organizations where the leadership are on this kind of ivory white tower looking down. They like being where they are. They want there to be that distance between themselves and the organization. They walk into a room and everybody's, oh my God, it's that person, right?
Yeah.
Versus you don't, when you walk into an organization, you're looking across the desks and you're just, if you were like, what I suppose the way to describe it, if you were watching an experiment, right, or you were doing it was an experiment, and you were in white lab coats and you were observing an organization's culture and their day-to-day interactions through a, one-way glass pane, right? You shouldn't be able to tell who the most senior people are in that business,
Yeah.
just from looking at them and interacting. You should see people all empowered, going in the same direction, supporting one another, and you should find it difficult. Whereas if you're looking through the pain in certain organizations, you can, as soon as a leader, you can tell.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for me, that kind of environment where you're struggling to tell who the leaders are, because everybody feels empowered and feels able to communicate and to share what's on their mind, and it's handled in the right way, that for me stems from the kind of culture you create per team. And
Yeah.
that comes from your leaders, and your leaders being, having the right behaviors and driving, fostering the right team dynamics and culture within the business. So I would say there are obviously multiple factors, but I say your leaders are critical to that. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. I
your
guess you're
leaders
right.
embracing that, I think, is key. So because if you have your leaders who, right, are very much standoffish, they don't get involved in that, they don't lean in, they don't encourage that kind of inclusivity, they don't empower their people to be able to challenge them and to call them out for stuff, then you won't get people bringing their full selves to work.
Yeah. And the positive out of that is that all is stuff that can be learned. And there
It it,
are,
it can
it,
be.
yeah. As you say, there needs to be that sort of want and need, want, and maybe push from other areas of the organization to kind of, if, as part of our leadership model, even we have this, the system of notice, decide, and act, where
Yeah.
you can, and it can come, essentially it could come from anywhere in the business if that allows, where, and it might be that somebody notices, oh, there could be some change here if we consider doing some this, that, some making some changes. And so yeah, it's been fascinating to kind of listen to that. And yeah, wouldn't it be nice that that if the whole world could adopt this approach of having organizations like this? And I wonder if culturally, globally, that insight is shared, and that kind of a thought process is shared. And would it be possible for global organizations to adapt and to change more towards that psychologically as safe environment? Yeah, definitely food for thought there.
And I would say that the word psychological safety, I think, had a different connotation pre-COVID compared to what it is now.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I would say that, when you used to say pre-COVID, it was like, oh, we're staying away from that. This is going down an ER route. This is really sticky. Whereas now it's like, no, psychological safety should be the norm.
Yeah.
People should feel safe psychologically to be able to bring themselves to work,
Yeah.
be able to challenge, make a mistake, learn from it, not be, not be castigated, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, I think definitely that's become more pronounced post-COVID. For me, the best feedback I've received historically from the teams I've managed is when they've turned around and said, Danny, you know something, you don't feel like my boss. I love working with you, and it's awesome. And when I'm with you and we're doing work, it doesn't feel like you're my boss, which I take
Yeah.
as a compliment. Some people will be like,
Yeah.
what? What does that mean? I bet, and people's mindset might start thinking, oh my God, that then means they don't listen to you, do they? You can't tell them, there's no that level of respect, and that is not true at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would take that as a compliment as well, because that would be if I was in that position, that would be how I'd want, my team to kind of feel. I'd want them to feel like there wasn't this barrier, this hidden
Yeah.
wall that they'd have to get through in order to be able to talk to me about something. So yeah, that's really a valuable insight. Listen, I'm really sorry to say this, but because I feel like we're only just getting started, but we've
We
come
might need
to
a part 2, my friend.
I know, yeah, we might need a part 2, and I'd be delighted to have a part 2. So for today, let's ask you my last question, which is the same again we ask all of our guests, and I think provides a really valuable insight into our leaders that we invite onto this podcast, which is if you were to start your career again and you'd be starting from scratch, knowing what you know now, what would be the best piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Great. I literally got asked this question the other day, and I was speaking to somebody who's coming up in their career, and I gave them this advice. The advice I wish I had known when I was younger, is I wish I'd known when I was younger that the power of personal branding and the power of your network. So when I was younger, I wish, because if I'm being brutally honest, I would say it's been in the last 7 or 8 years that I've really started focusing on my network and kind of putting myself out there in terms of personal branding, and it's led to multiple opportunities for me.
Yeah.
I wish when I was younger, I consciously put an effort in, like I did now, to form a network from day one. Young people don't do that, and that's one of the feedbacks I give them in terms of when they kind of get onto LinkedIn and start, connecting with people. And I really wish that when I was younger in my career, I was I was better at networking. And I was good at talking to people, which is not the same as networking. What I mean is keeping contacts, getting people to be able to mentor me, keeping people within my in my sphere, getting help from them, kind of offering them support, all that stuff, just having a really strong network so that whenever opportunities came, people came to me for opportunities than the other way around. So I would say every conversation you have in your career with somebody that you connect with, keep in touch with them, get the details, and just kind of
stay connected.
Stay connected, because young people don't do that as well as they should, and there's some young people who are doing it so brilliantly, and you can just see how they are absolutely flying in their careers.
It is a great insight.
That would be something I would absolutely, so going back now to when I was when I was a medical sales rep in AstraZeneca in pharma, there were people there that I worked with that when I see them now in terms of what they were doing, I was thinking, bloody hell, I should have kept in touch with that person. I should have had them as part of my network. I should have been closer to them in terms of what they were doing. I would be further in my career than I am now at a much quicker point. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that is an interesting insight. But I suppose, absolutely. And I think that there is definitely a lot to be said for that. But I suppose also there's part of growing up and having that developmental experience as well,
True,
isn't it?
100%,
It's like,
100%.
I suppose, there are people that definitely, that whole fate things happen for a reason, and the way that, how different that whole sliding doors effect, that how different would your life have been? And I suppose also what I normally do, and I don't feel I need to do this, is sort of throw that challenge back and say, if you give that advice now to your younger self or to younger people, and do you live by that? Do you live by your own advice? But I can absolutely tell that you already do that. So, listen, Dani, what an incredible conversation we've had, and I've loved every second of it. And it's sad that we have to bring it to an end, but we do. So thank you ever so much for joining me today, and I very much appreciate you giving your time to us. So that just leaves me to say that if you'd like to find out any more about Dani's book, or if you'd like to connect with us on LinkedIn, the links to either of myself and to Dani's will be on the description. Plus, if you want to find out more about Impact, then the links will be there in that description too. So once again, thank you to Dani for joining me today, and until the next time, take care.